What if retiring in 10 years wasn't about cutting coupons or eating ramen for a decade? Not about inheritance, not about crypto moonshots, but about understanding one simple shift that happens around year 5 that most people never reach. In this video, I'm breaking down the real timeline, the hidden inflection point nobody talks about, and why the first 3 years look nothing like the last 3 years. Before we dive in, comment below whether you're starting from zero or already building, because your starting position changes which strategy matters most. And stick around because I'll show you the exact moment when your money starts earning more than your job, and why getting there faster isn't about making 6 figures. But first, we need to talk about why the 10-year retirement concept gets dismissed as a fantasy when the math actually checks out for average earners. The biggest reason people dismiss the idea of retiring in a decade isn't because it's unrealistic. It's because what you experience in the beginning looks nothing like where you're headed. You start by investing $600, watch it grow to $630 after a month, and immediately think this is going to take forever. That massive gap between the effort you're putting in and the results you're seeing makes the entire concept feel like a broken promise. We're also programmed by society to accept one single retirement timeline. You graduate at 22, work until you're 65, and then finally get to live your life. If you grew up watching your parents spend 40 years commuting to jobs they merely tolerated, the idea of compressing all of that into just 10 years almost feels disrespectful to their sacrifice. So when someone presents the math, showing it's actually possible, your brain instinctively rejects it to protect that worldview you've inherited. Let me show you what really happens in year 1. Imagine you're earning $5,000 a month and you manage to invest $1,000 of it. That's aggressive, but absolutely achievable. After 12 months of discipline, you've saved $12,000. With average market returns, maybe it's grown to $13,200. Now, look at that number with complete honesty. It feels like absolutely nothing. If your goal is to replace your income and live off your investments, $13,200 seems almost laughable. That emotional reality right there is what destroys most attempts before they ever mature. What people don't realize is that wealth building doesn't follow a straight line. It operates in 3 completely distinct zones, and each zone plays by totally different rules. In years 1 through 3, you're in what I call the contribution desert. You are the only engine. Every single dollar sitting in your account came directly from your paycheck. Growth technically exists, but it's practically invisible. This is where burnout lives. You're sacrificing nights out with friends, driving an older car, saying no to weekend trips, and your reward is a number on a screen that feels insignificant compared to the effort. Then something starts to shift between years 4 and 6. This is the zone where your investment returns start matching your monthly contributions. This is the inflection point that changes everything. The money you saved years ago is finally generating returns that actually matter. Instead of contributing $1,000 and watching it become $1,050, you're adding $1,000 and the market is adding another $800 on its own. Suddenly, you're not alone anymore in this fight. Years 7 through 10 are where acceleration kicks in. Your investments start earning more than your actual salary. This is when people finally understand what compounding really means. The account grows by $4,000 in a single month, when you only added $1,000 yourself. It feels like magic, but it's just mathematics that finally reached critical mass. The tragedy here is that 90% of people quit during those first 3 years. They're literally 3 years away from the zone where everything changes, but they never get to experience it because the waiting feels completely pointless. Let me tell you about Jennifer. She started at 32, planning to retire by 42. She saved $1,200 monthly, lived modestly while friends upgraded to luxury condos, skipped expensive weddings, and avoided lifestyle inflation completely. After 2.5 years, she had $32,000. One evening, she calculated her target, $800,000 based on the 4% rule. She stared at that gap. At her pace, she'd need 20 more years, not 7. All that sacrifice, all that discipline, and the numbers barely moved. She almost quit. Here's what Jennifer missed: that $32,000 wasn't failure. It was the launch pad. In Zone 1, you build the foundation that makes Zones 2 and 3 possible. She was perfectly on schedule, but measuring success with the wrong ruler. This invisible cliff ends most journeys. People quit exactly when compound growth is about to ignite. So the real question isn't whether 10-year retirement is possible. It's whether you can survive Zone 1 to experience Zone 2. There's one specific moment in every wealth-building journey that changes absolutely everything, and it has a name. It's called the crossover point. This is the moment when your investment returns in a single year exceed what you're contributing from your paycheck. Once you cross that line, you're no longer the primary engine of your wealth. Your money is doing the heavy lifting now. Calculating it is straightforward. Take your current portfolio value and multiply it by your expected annual return. Let's use 9% as a reasonable long-term average that accounts for ups and downs. When that resulting number exceeds what you're personally contributing each year, you've officially crossed over. Here's what that looks like in practice. Let's say you have $150,000 invested. At 9% expected returns, that portfolio should generate roughly $13,500 in growth over the year, but you're still contributing $15,000 from your paycheck. You're close to the crossover point, but you're not quite there yet. Your work still matters more than your investments at this stage. Now watch what happens just 1 year later. Your portfolio has grown to $180,000. At that same 9% expected return, it's now generating $16,200 in annual growth. You're still contributing $15,000 from your salary, and just like that, you've crossed over. Your investments are now contributing more to your wealth than you are. Here's the beautiful part that most people miss. That gap doesn't just exist. It widens dramatically every single year from this point forward. The power of understanding the crossover point goes beyond just the math. It's psychological. When you know exactly what number triggers this shift, Zone 1 stops feeling endless and starts feeling like a countdown. Instead of vaguely hoping for someday, you're actively tracking toward $150,000 or $180,000 or whatever your personal crossover target happens to be based on your contribution rate. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention. Time isn't just valuable in this process. It's the invisible multiplier that makes everything else work. Delaying your start by even a single year doesn't just push your finish line back by 1 year. It actually pushes it back by 3 to 5 years, depending on when you're starting this journey. Here's why that happens. Imagine you have $100,000 invested, earning 9% annually. Over 10 years, that money grows to roughly $237,000. But if you wait just 1 year to start, you don't have 9 years to make up the difference. You've permanently lost an entire compounding cycle. Think of it like planting a tree. Plant it today, and in 10 years you're sitting in the shade. Wait just 1 year, and you don't just lose 1 year of shade. You lose the growth that tree would have experienced during what would have been its strongest growing season. Compound growth works exactly the same way. The earliest dollars work the longest hours and produce the most fruit. Let me show you this with two people, Alex and Morgan. Both of them plan to invest $1,000 every month. Alex starts at age 30. By the time Alex turns 40, the portfolio is sitting at approximately $200,000. Total contributions over those 10 years were $120,000, which means growth added $80,000. Morgan starts just 1 year later at age 31. By age 40, Morgan's portfolio reaches approximately $185,000. Total contributions were $108,000 and growth added $77,000. That 1 year delay cost Morgan $15,000 in final value. But here's the deeper cost that really matters. To catch up to Alex, Morgan would need to increase monthly contributions by roughly $140 every single month for the entire 9-year period. 1 year of delay requires 9 years of extra sacrifice to overcome. That's why urgency matters so much in this process. Not panic, but purposeful urgency. Every month you delay is leverage you're permanently giving up. And when you're running a 10-year sprint, leverage is absolutely everything. Let me introduce you to David. He had $25,000 and contributed $800 monthly. He calculated his crossover point. $107,000 would generate $9,600 annually, matching his contributions. For 4 years, he tracked it obsessively. At 32, he hit $110,000. His investments generated $9,900, while he contributed $9,600. He wasn't alone anymore. By 34, his $160,000 portfolio grew $14,400, while he added $9,600. His money contributed 50% more than him. At 36, his $220,000 generated $19,800 versus his $9,600. His money worked twice as hard. David says the crossover point was when he stopped pushing the boulder uphill. It started rolling itself, and he just kept it on track. That shift makes the second half feel radically different. You're not alone. Your money works alongside you. Once you know when that happens, the question becomes how to structure your finances to get there. That's where the system comes in. Retiring in 10 years has almost nothing to do with how much you make. It has everything to do with how wide you can make the gap between what you earn and what you spend, and more importantly, how long you can hold that gap open without caving to lifestyle inflation. Most people experience what I call lifestyle expansion. They get a raise, so they upgrade the apartment. A promotion comes through, so they buy a nicer car. Income rises and spending rises right along with it in perfect lockstep. That pattern makes 10-year retirement mathematically impossible, no matter what your salary looks like. The alternative is gap expansion. Your income rises, but your expenses stay frozen or rise much slower. Every dollar of increased income flows directly into your investments instead of into your lifestyle. Let me show you the reality check that most people need to see. In scenario A, someone's income climbs from $60,000 to $90,000 over 10 years, but their spending also climbs from $45,000 to $70,000. Their gap goes from $15,000 to $20,000. Total invested over the decade is roughly $175,000. In scenario B, the income climbs the exact same way from $60,000 to $90,000, but spending stays frozen at $45,000. Now the gap expands from $15,000 to $45,000. Total invested over 10 years is roughly $300,000. Same income growth, radically different outcomes. The entire difference comes down to discipline around that gap. Here's a practical framework you can implement immediately. I call it the freeze and flow method. It works in 3 simple steps. First, freeze your current living expenses. Calculate your monthly baseline right now. Whatever that number is today, commit to living on it for the next 24 months minimum. No upgrades, no lifestyle inflation, just freeze it in place. Second, let everything flow. Every dollar that comes in above that frozen baseline flows automatically into investments. You get a raise, it flows. Side income appears, it flows. Tax refund hits your account, it flows. Year-end bonus arrives, it flows. You treat anything above your frozen baseline as if it's already been spent on your future self. Third, review annually but protect the gap. Once per year, you're allowed to adjust your baseline, but only for true cost of living increases or necessary life changes. Not for wants, only for needs. This prevents the freeze from becoming completely unsustainable while still protecting the gap that's building your wealth. The beauty of this method is its simplicity. You're not tracking every single expense or obsessing over complicated budgets. You have one number, your frozen baseline, and everything else has one clear destination. Now, let's talk about how to structure the money you're investing so it actually lasts. To make a 10-year plan durable enough to work for 40 or 50 years of retirement, you need 3 types of assets working together simultaneously. Most people build just one bucket and then wonder why they struggle with volatility or run out of money. Each bucket serves a completely different purpose, and you genuinely need all 3. The first bucket is your growth assets. This should be somewhere between 60 and 70% of your portfolio. This is your wealth accelerator. Broad index funds, ETFs, tracking the S and P 500 or total market, along with individual growth stocks if you have the risk tolerance. These assets are volatile, but they're what push your your portfolio from $100,000 to $500,000. Without them, you're building wealth too slowly to hit 10 years. The second bucket is your income assets, making up about 20 to 30% of your portfolio. These are dividend-paying stocks, REITs, bonds, or rental income if you're hands-on. These generate cash flow, regardless of market conditions. In early years, you reinvest this income for faster compounding. In later years, this becomes part of your retirement income stream. These assets smooth out the ride and give you options when markets drop. The third bucket is stability assets, taking up roughly 10 to 20% of your portfolio. This includes high-yield savings, treasury bonds, and money market funds. These earn modest returns, but they're your insurance policy. When the market crashes 30%, you're not forced to sell growth assets at a loss to cover expenses. You tap stability, wait for recovery, and keep your long-term plan intact. Think of it like a vehicle. Growth is the engine that provides speed. Income is the transmission that keeps you moving in all conditions. Stability is the brakes and safety systems that prevent disaster. Here's what people miss. Even after retiring, reinvest 20 to 30% of passive income. Retire with $800,000 generating $32,000 annually at 4%. Spend it all, and inflation erodes purchasing power. After 15 years, that $32,000 buys what $20,000 buys today. But spend $22,000 and reinvest $10,000. Over 10 retirement years, your portfolio grows to $1 million, generating $40,000. Your income grew 25% while retired. That's how you retire at 40 with wealth at 80. So can you really retire in 10 years? Absolutely yes. If this gave you clarity, hit like, subscribe, and comment with your age and target retirement year.